Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Well, good morning. It's technically still good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. This is, let's see, one, two, three, four, fifth, my fifth live stream of Streamtember, which is what I'm calling this. If you happen to stop by and you have no idea who I am, my name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net. And I equip and train youth workers. I keep youth workers motivated and keep their youth ministries moving forward. That's kind of what I do. It's what I feel like God's called me to do. And so I continue to do that through these live streams. Now, I will tell you, if you have any questions about, youth ministry, you can leave them in the chat. And I will certainly answer your questions. I think I have a couple of questions for today. That I'll be answering. They're not going to be super hardball questions today, I don't think. They're going to be fairly, they're good questions. They're good questions. They're questions that we ask, I think, as youth pastors quite frequently. So, but you know what? If you're a youth pastor, maybe, you sometimes forget, some of these things, right? So we will revisit them and see if we can't get some things going here. All right, so Today's live stream is brought to you by my youth ministry playbook. It is a resource for youth pastors who say, look, I need to organize my youth ministry. I need to know the thing. How do I keep this thing together, Paul? How do I plan? How do I put together a good calendar? That's why I built this. That's why I wrote this, so you could build a championship youth ministry. Because let's put it this way: I don't know of any disorganized youth ministries that are successful. I think the key to being successful in youth ministry is being organized, because it deals with communication, it deals with program, it deals with execution, it deals with meetings, it deals with all these things that you have to have planned out, over months' time. And that's what my youth ministry playbook does. It gives you the tools to plan. It has over probably 15 articles, I think, that I've written for this about planning and about organization. It comes with guides, like the Youth Pastor's Guide to Trips, the Youth Pastor's Guide to having an epic Nerf night, the Youth Pastor's Guide to getting things done. And these are all little mini ebooks that are part of this. In addition to this, by the way, to keep that's the overall, that's the big picture, right, of youth ministry. And then I dial it in to my youth meeting playbook, which is all about having successful youth meetings, which we had a very successful youth meeting last night, I will say. We're in a process of where students are co-teaching with me and having a great time with that. They're doing a bang-up job. I'm super excited for them. But in this youth meeting planning book, the Youth Ministry Meeting Playbook, I give you, once again, about 15 or so articles on what I believe are best practices for youth meetings, how to generate a lot of enthusiasm, energy, momentum, how to have meetings build upon one another. I give you these planning sheets right here that really has the elements. And through the book, I write an article on each of these elements and why I think they're necessary for a good youth meeting. Things like your core text, your opening ideas, your announcements, media, your wow moment. What is that? Well, you got to get the resource to find out what that is. And then on the back, it shows why student involvement is key. If you're not planning your meetings with that in your mind, you really need to. Adult leaders, the three P's, which are prayer, people, and process, and then meeting evaluation. Do you evaluate your meetings? Well, I think you need to do that. So if you're interested in those resources, I'm going to drop a link down in the chat there. And once again, those that are going to be jumping in, please let me know where you're from, maybe what church you're at, and if you have any questions you'd like me to answer. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, drop the links down in here to my youth meeting playbook. Now, you can buy, by the way, you can buy just the playbook separately, but it comes along with the youth meeting playbook. You can buy separately, but it does come along with the youth ministry playbook. So you want to make sure you go ahead and grab that for yourself. let's see here. My youth meeting playbook. I'll drop that in there. Put it right here. Okay. And that is for that's for the youth meeting playbook with the 52 planning sheets. Got 52, one per week for the year. Should cover you. And then I'll drop the link for my youth ministry playbook, which once again, that's a part of, you get the meeting playbook as part of the my youth ministry playbook. So I want you to check that out. And I'll put that right there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the question I'm going to answer for today. I got a couple of questions today, in addition to whatever you may ask. And if you're watching this later, well, be sure to go ahead and leave your questions down below. If you do have questions you'd like me to answer in a future live stream, I think I have two more left, I think, for the month. Next Tuesday, next Thursday, 11:30. So feel free to join me here. And also, if you're not a subscriber here to the channel, be sure to go and click the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. It tells me you like the video and you want more of them. So let's go ahead and start with the first question today. And that is, how do you incorporate recent high school graduates into your youth ministry program? It is the age-old question. And I was talking with a recent graduate. He graduated this past year, went off to college, decided to go ahead and take, after his first semester, I'd take some time off. So he's back with me. And somebody asked me, somebody had asked me about, and I can't remember, I think it was a parent or somebody said, well, what do you do? Do you move these, kids out? I say, well, not if I don't have to. Because in past youth ministries, when you get students who are, they age out, right? And you say, well, what becomes of them? Well, my first goal is to decide whether or not this person can feed back in. In other words, would they make a good leader? Were they a good leader while they were a student? Well, then I would certainly want to have them, which I have one of these, and that student that's rejoining us is that caliber young man. So I'm excited to have him as in leadership. And in reality, how do you incorporate recent high school graduates into your youth ministry? I think the greater question, now you can keep a student connected to the church through doing that if they're in leadership. I think the bigger question is, how do you incorporate graduates into your church? And that has to be a decision between the church and the youth pastor. That really has to be a designed plan. Because if the pastor and the youth pastor are not working on that, that's a two-part deal. I don't believe that falls entirely upon the youth pastor's shoulders to figure out, well, how is it my job or responsibility necessarily to keep a kid connected to the church if the church itself is not participating in the program element of that? And it has a lot to do with your pastor, it has a lot to do with leadership, it has to do with your board, it has to do with philosophy of ministry. And so for that, I think you have to get with your pastor. Maybe you do. Maybe the idea is to do a retreat with your graduating, those that are staying around. Do a retreat with your young adults, right? Those that are graduating. Take them on a retreat. Your pastor's a part of that. The board is a part of that. People who are, in my mind, it's a formulated, planned out retreat, which is all about pouring into those students that have just graduated to say, look, you are a part of this church. And yes, you can do that for 3 years with high school students. So you're going to participate in the church. Now, I've done this with students. I've let them preach on a Sunday morning. I co-preached with a student on a Sunday morning. I have used them for announcements. I've used them in skits. I've used them in Wednesday nights with the adult team and doing games and all kinds of ways I've tried to integrate them, right? You have kids that are working in children's ministry maybe. So, the key is, I think overall you have to have a strategy for that. And that has to be part of the church. The church has to be responsible, and the youth pastor has to work together, and the whole church has to be a part of that. It has to be a process that makes sense to integrate not only those kids who have just graduated into the church, but keeping kids involved in ministry. Because that's really what you're saying is, look, you guys went through 4 years of youth group. Now we say, hey, look, those 4 years of development then says, hey, how do we become a part of, the bigger body, the larger body? And that's a journey from the time that they're in 8th grade, 7th grade, all the way till they graduate. And so youth pastors have to be diligent to find ways to involve those new graduating students. But like I said, as far as the youth ministry goes, I don't. I do cap my youth ministry that if you graduate out and you want to volunteer, you want to be a part, you're going to be put to good use. Because what I find is that depending on personality, other things, ministry, ability. Does a student want to minister? Does a student have leadership abilities or qualities? Where would they fit back in? And I think you have to be able to be in discussion with that. If not, then I think if you keep a kid maybe for when they're 19, I don't see that as a problem. When they get to be 20, 21, and they start experiencing other things, my goal is to help them grow in the Lord, and to help them, connect with the body a lot better. But that age demographic is hard. I understand. I've dealt with it for 35 years of trying to figure out. My best idea is to then find a way, if I can, to help them become leaders within the group. And if they have those abilities, then I want to help them. I want to help facilitate that next segment of growth. If they don't, the issue becomes that sometimes that young adults, being young adults, it's just playtime. It's just it's just a chance to push away the opportunity to grow, to push away the opportunity to become a body of Christ. And I just think it's too critical. I think you have to be able to you work with each student individually. You decide, hey, which ones are going to remain with you, which ones have those leadership abilities, which ones can contribute to the discipleship of the students coming up. Can they help with things? So I think you just have to be very conscientious, very diligent, and having a system in place, a process in place, a written process in place, because you're going to hear from parents, you're going to hear from your pastor, you're going to hear from other students, you're going to hear from various people. And so you're going to have that process down to say, this is how we do things. When a student graduates, right? So in my case, like I said, my process going forward is, hey, can this student contribute back into the group? And currently, yes, that is the case. Because I don't want to keep them from growing up. I don't want to lose kids from the church. But I also don't want them to forego that process that every young adult has to go through, which is to find themselves, which is to find their goals, to find their dreams, to go to college, to get that job, to find your career. And some of it's just going to take 5 to 10 years to figure that out. They're going to have to work through it. Some are, in general, it'll take them a 10-year window to kind of work through that. And if they can contribute and be a part of the youth ministry, then I want them to be part of the youth ministry as a leader, to learn leadership skills, to learn communication skills, to learn planning skills, all the things that would be of value to them in the marketplace. I think they can learn within the context of the youth ministry. And if that's not the case, then I want to be able to say, hey, look, go into the adult congregation, find ways to find your place there, maybe work in children's ministry, become an usher. But once again, that comes back to the entire church embracing these young adults. That has to be the mindset. If it's not, then the chances of that student remaining a part of the body of Christ is super slim. It just is. So my best advice is work together with your pastor, your board, and others to say, what is our plan going forward? How do we handle the graduates? Are we going to do a retreat for these graduates coming up? Is the pastor going to speak into their lives? Is there going to be roles and responsibilities that are going to be offered? Is there a strategy for that? And if you don't have a strategy for that, it's just going to be hard. It's just going to be hard. So that's my encouragement for that. Be sure, if you can, include them on your adult team to minister to students. Otherwise, if they don't have any heart for ministry, or they're just wanting to hang around and goof off and do other stuff, it's not going to help you. It's going to work against you. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Okay? All right, so that is question number 1. I want to let you know about a couple of other things here today before I get into question number 2. And question number 2 is sponsored by, I like saying sponsored by, is sponsored by a couple of things. Number 1, I have a bundle of resources called Media to Message. And Media to Message is where I take news stories from the headlines, right? They're not necessarily national major headlines, but they are headlines. They're stories that happen, real life stories, things that are happening. And I put them in a biblical context because I think the broader themes of the idea go beyond, obviously, the story. So if you're interested, there are 10 lessons in this bundle, 10 lessons for $10. And I want to tell you about my recent lesson that I just did. On Instagram, there is a show. It's kind of like a little reality interview show, and it's called Subway Takes. And Subway Takes is basically a guy on a train interviewing people on the train. Could be a random passenger. It could be somebody of some fame or quality, of notoriety. And in this case, it was a girl that her name, if I can remember her name, Jensen is, I believe, is her last name. And she is a comedian. And she had such once again, not a Christian as far as I know. I'm pretty sure by the conversation she is not. But she had a great take, because that's the gimmick, is that the host will go ahead and say, hey, what's your take? And they will say what their take is. This comedian's take was, in essence, that Christians lack, she says that her take is there are no such thing as religious people. And what she was meaning by that, in listening to the whole interview, is the fact that she was saying that Christians, there are no religious people because real religious people have convictions. They have strong convictions. And her contention was that people who say they are Christians do not live as Christians do. And I think that she made such a great point. It is worthy of a lesson, because in the lesson I talk about the difference between a person who lives their faith to the extreme and an extremist. Okay, that's the points she's making in her discussion. And so if you're looking for a resource, that's the latest Bible study that I put in there. It comes with the entire conversation. And like I said, it has questions, small group questions. It has biblical points. It has commentary. It has a lot of things in it. So I try to pack a lot into my lessons, and then you can kind of discern how much of that you want to be able to use for your youth meeting. So if you're looking for stories that are out there, it comes with a link to the story or to the video, and then it gives you the actual lesson itself. You can take from that what you will and use what you like, but I think this kind of conversation is a conversation we need to have with our students. What does it mean to live your faith to the extreme without being an extremist, and being a person with conviction, being a person who lives by their convictions? Because that's what Ms. Jensen was asking for. She says, look, don't, because the question came up about church people. She's like, screw those people. Those people just go to church. They're good people. They don't have any convictions. They just kind of do their thing. And so when you hear that, you're like, oh my goodness, that is like that's just a reality check. I think for a lot of believers and a lot of pastors and a lot of youth pastors that need to hear that you know what? There's people out there who are not Christians who are waiting for Christians to show up and do the things they say they believe in without being extremists, just being extreme, just to live their faith to the extreme, to the point where they share their faith, to where the point they live their faith, and put those things forth. So there's a link in the chat. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out. And the other resource that I'll tell you about is 31 Halloween Would You Rather questions. So I've set this up in two ways. One, these are all Instagram ready. They are TikTok ready. And they are ready for slides. So you actually get them three ways: Instagram, TikTok, and in your youth room for your screens, so that you can do this with your youth group, right? You can do social engagement. You can do the room dynamics with a bunch of ideas you can use with that. And then you can maybe obviously put it on TikTok for more engagement over there. Now, the other part of this, because this is I give you, this is really quite the deal here, because not only am I giving you this, by the way, to get this, all you have to do is sign up for my newsletter. So I'll put that link here in a minute. But you're going to get Which is Scarier? Which is Scarier? Bible edition, right? So it's kind of like Would You Rather, but it's which is scarier. And I give you a couple of choices between, you give students a choice, which is scarier, a mummy or Frankenstein, right? So, but this is the Bible edition, it would be more like, which is scarier? The Jesus returning, or the flood of the flooding of the entire world. So which is scarier to you, right? So it gives those types of questions to your students to kind of, create some debate and some stir, or just some simple answers that they're going to come up with. So if you're interested in that, once again, there'll be a link down below. There'll be all the links, by the way, for the show will be down in the description, and I will go ahead and drop a link to this. All you have to do is sign up for the newsletter, and if you sign up for the newsletter, you're going to get resources in there as well. I send out free stuff. I just sent out this past Wednesday in the newsletter. I sent out 5 songs you need to add to your youth room playlist, pre-service, post-service. Just some great banger songs you can put on there. It's hard to keep up with everything, and I try to help you out there. But if I hear something good, I want to be able to share it with you. So if you're interested in the Halloween Would You Rather, then be sure to sign up for the newsletter. I'll drop that in the chat as well. Let's see here. Here we go. And then they say, Paul, I don't want to join the newsletter. Can I just buy it? Yes, you can. And I'll put that here. I'll put that here as well. And I'll put the store version there. We'll put that in there. And then the last thing I'll put in there before I get to the next question is, listen, there's a lot of stuff in the store, lots of resources. I'll just put a link to the store itself. So if you want to go right there, and it has tabs where you can go and find the thing you're looking for in the store, small groups, outreach, discipleship products, all the things, you can find them there in the store. Okay? All right, so I think that is that. Let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2 is, what are some good get-to-know-you questions? See, this is a great opportunity to talk to kids. When you're talking to kids, it can be a little awkward, right? There's normal things you're going to ask, maybe, right? Like, hey, where do you go to school? What grade are you in? What's your favorite color? Right? This questions you're just going to be able to ask students, just kind of know. One of my go-to questions, if I'm always looking for a kid that's wearing, well, I could say it's not as prevalent today, maybe, I don't know. But if they're wearing a wrestling shirt, like a WWE shirt, or I'll say, hey, who's your favorite wrestler? So I'm looking for clues of stuff that they're wearing. It could be a band. Now, it's harder today because a lot of kids who wear shirts about, like, say, classic rock bands, they don't know who those classic rock bands are. They just wear it for style. But back in the day, right, if you had a band shirt, you listened to the band. That was you went to the concert, or you just found, you say, hey, that's a, you say, look, I enjoy that band or that group. And so when you're asking questions, they're just simple get to know you questions. Pick up on the cues of things that they're wearing. Look at what they're wearing. If they're a sneakerhead, look at what the shoes they're wearing. And maybe if you're into sneakers, say, hey, do you like these shoes or those shoes? You may want to ask, hey, did you see any good? I still think a good question is, have you seen anything good? You could say, have you seen any good movies lately? Or say, hey, look, what are you watching on streaming? Or what's your favorite streaming service? Right? All kinds of things you could be sharing. Be able to ask about. But I'll give you a couple of other ideas here. And by the way, if you have a good, what you like to lead with type of question with students, leave it in the chat or leave it down in the comments. What's your favorite get to know you question that you like to use with students? But I found a resource that I'll put up here. Let me go ahead and get rid of that for a moment. And it is I think it's churchyouthministry.com. And it has on there this particular page, and I will put a link down below. You can download it for free. It is a whole list of possible questions, get to know you questions, that you can use. And you can, it also has deeper questions. So if you say, hey, I need some deeper questions, Paul, what can I put as a part of my arsenal of questions? Well, this will give you some ideas. I'll put the link there. Like I said, it's totally free. Get to know you questions from churchyouthministry.com. And I'm going to go ahead and share some with you. So some of these questions here, I'll close some windows here and get to what I'm looking at. Of course, they have the normal get to know you, right? Like I said, what's your name? What school are you in? What year? All those kind of things. Also, another thing is look for sports gear, right? Are they wearing a Chiefs hat? Are they, wearing a baseball cap? Are they rooting for a team? Well, then you can connect with other team and say, hey, what's your favorite? You already have your favorite team, but hey, who's your favorite player on the Chiefs? Hey, do you think the Chiefs are going to win, the Super Bowl? Do you play fantasy football? Right? That'd be a good question. Which then could lead to, hey, do you play? Yeah, no, I'm not in a group. Hey, it'd be cool if we started a fantasy football group, right? You could do that. What's your, do you play any sports? How many people in your family? Do you have any brothers and sisters, right? And then, of course, you're always kind of playing off and saying, well, hey, you're looking for, commonality. Right? Is there anything that you share together that's worth, having conversations over? That's the whole point of doing that. And then you have some deeper questions. And there's some good deeper questions here. And these are maybe not initial questions, maybe, but I think you have to wait after. I think there's like a cooling off period. Like, let's wait until they come for, 3 or 4 weeks, maybe, right? Before maybe you get to these here. But maybe questions like, hey, what stresses you out? What's something that stresses you out? Or maybe a kind of person that stresses you out, right? If you could, would you want to go back in time? If so, why? And maybe who would you want to meet, right? Which would be your favorite era of history, world history? Where would you want to go? Would you want to go back to the days of medieval knights? Would you want to go back to the days of the caveman and watch, dinosaurs running around? Whatever it would be, right? And saying, hey, maybe you want to, maybe I say I'd like to go in the future. Okay. I'd like to go in the future and see what's going on. Or maybe you want to go around the time of the Industrial Revolution and see all the inventions and all the things that were being done then, right? Or maybe you would say, look, we want to go around to the Renaissance, right? And you'd share obviously your favorite time period as well. A good question is, what 3 things would you take to a desert island? I always like that GQ interview, the 10 things you can't live without, which I think is a fun thing to do with students. Hey, bring your 5 things you can't live without. More than likely, it's already on them, right? They have already the 5 things that they can't live without. One being their phone, and probably 4 other things, right? That they probably have on their person at your youth meeting. You know, and girls of course got stuff in their purse. Guys are like, oh, I don't have all my stuff with me. It maybe favors the young ladies because maybe they have all their stuff with them, versus guys who says, well, I got my T-shirt and my phone and my hat or my hoodie. You know, they may say, look, I'll just go like this. That's fine. But I think that's a good question to have, because then you see what they value, right? You know, you could say, what would you let's see, what is this question here? Oh my goodness, why is that blocked off there? Let's see, what would you change? What would you change about history? You know, what's one thing you would be willing to change about history? Is a good question. If you didn't live here, where would you want to live? Right? I think these are all, you know, questions that, once again, reveal. The whole point of having these questions with students is to get to know them, to get to know their personality, to get to know their values, to see if there's any commonality. And once again, it's questions are free over there on the website, churchyouthministry.com, I think it is. So you can go check that out over there and find yourself some good questions. The link is in the chat. The link will also be in the description. So I'm going to be wrapping up here in just a minute. If you have any questions, be sure to go ahead and ask the question now, because like I said, I'm going to be wrapping up here in just a second. So let me know what you think your question is going to be. Okay, so leave it, if you don't, like I said, if you're watching later, leave it down in the comments. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thanks for participating. Once again, if you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you are have not hit the thumbs up button, please do that. And if you want to know when I go live, we'll go ahead and click the bell notification there, and you'll know when I go live. I got 2 more days that I'm doing this month, which I'm calling Streamtember, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11:30. I hope that you'll hang out, catch up with me, and maybe you have some questions by then. But other than that, folks, thank you so much for joining today. Thanks for being a part, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.